then the clay jug by Kabir. Inside this clay jug there are canyons and pine mountains, and the maker of canyons and pine mountains. All 7 oceans are inside, and hundreds of millions of stars. The acid that tests gold is there, and the one who judges jewels. And the music from the strings no one touches, and the source of all water. If you want the truth, I tell you the truth. Friend, listen. The God whom I love is inside. I like your new pulpit, but I like the opportunity to come back up here and to drive up here on such a beautiful morning up in the North Georgia mountains and see the fall leaves turning. It's great to be here with you all. So let us hold in our hearts how divided we now know our nation has become. This is clear from the presidential campaign. Let us ponder this concern as a people of liberal faith as we ask together, what shall we do? My message today offers a lens of hope as we enter and discern that question. Not hope that something will happen, something that looks beyond this present moment and toward some hoped-for future, but hope in that taps our deepest longings and feelings, hope that dwells with and stays with the currents of our feelings. Hope in highlights the virtue of love that holds us. This is the love that comforts us in spite of our struggles and our differences. In spite of personal fears, in spite of a loss or an unfortunate circumstance. These hopes are not some kind of philosophical posturing. They are spiritual longings that we each, whether we are persons of faith or skeptics, that we harbor in our hearts. They stir within us as aches and as deep desires. Bring to mind, right now, if you will, bring to mind some deep longing that has been met in your life with the gift of love. Someone's love. Some place that evoked a sense of love. I readily go back to 1981 when I first met Jean, my life partner of 34 years. That's when I first met her in August, 81. My longings for one person who could see me for who I am were met. It's no cliche to say that we became soulmates. Every week, often daily, we hear each other into authentic, mutual presence. Now, without sharing, without speaking, but in your thoughts, be with someone, some person in your life who has truly seen and heard you. and has acknowledged you to your very depths. I'm going to pause and let you reflect. Bring it to the surface of your own heart and mind. A moment that you have felt that act of loving presence. This is an act of love for you by someone else, and an act of loving yourself, because it couldn't have happened without you also loving yourself and accepting that love. And it's precious to hold ourselves and to be with ourselves in this way. It's amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Someone drops his or her personal neediness, their baggage, and attends to us fully and caringly with no expectations and no judgments. This is love. It has cleansed the air of everything else. Someone is totally present to us. And time seems to stop. And the atmosphere here and the space here radiates kind of a warm embrace. Feel it in your memories, in your heart. An invisible, palpable power moves in our midst when this happens. And we don't want it to stop. We want it to persist, to carry us. That is the feeling of hope in. Something touches us when we are with another in this way. And we are within something unnameable. And I call it the deep within. And it goes to the very marrow of our being. And it brings with it a feeling of buoyancy, a lift. And we feel held and lifted with a lightness of spirit and a sensation of freedom. Some person and some atmosphere of attention has awakened a larger feeling of embrace, and we feel deeply understood, and our spirit is invited to flow into this space of welcome to stream with unchallenged abandon. It's so rare, so beautiful, and so incredibly precious. In our liberal faith, from where do you think we receive this gift of grace? What source, what tradition, what memories, what thoughts, what people? I would point to universalism, the faith of Olympia Brown, of John Murray, who was mentioned already, and of one of my mentors, the Reverend Dr. Gordon McKeeman. That heritage lives and reveres the claim that we dwell in a universe and our earth home that cares for life and sustains life. One beautiful way of saying this is we live in a generous and generative universe. The succinct way that the Universalist said it is, God is love. But we do not need to be a theist to feel this faith and to harbor this hope. Life itself is love. And to know that, we need to leave our habit of standing apart from life, commenting and judging. We simply need to unshutter our hearts and be present to life. In other words, we need to embrace life deeply and relationally. to dive deep. Our hearts are our guides. And we will for sure confront our fears. That's how our universalist heritage can serve our souls if we let it. This is how we grow hope. We can start today's inquiry into hope just about anywhere with any topic whatsoever. And I want to start with the desires of human longings, yours and mine. When we enter this way, our questions begin with what is stirring in our own hearts. We're kind of in a conversation with our hearts, listening, attending. I do not mean what has you upset. I mean for us to look below what disturbs us, like the lack of civility during this election. Certainly most of us are upset, but underneath our reactive emotions dwell deeper needs and desires. Resist the tug to enter that fray. Enter instead the primal core of silence that helps us get centered. There in the quiet, you are accompanied by a hush that hears the still small voice, the voice of an inner stream. It's the deep longings that carry the feel of authentic hope. Quiet feelings flow like the interior waters of a great river. Those longings ask us to slow down so we can hear them and feel them. I've been dogged by deep desires all of my adult life, from college age on. Listening to my longings is what drew me to the UU ministry. I could no longer resist the persistence of that inner voice and that tug at my heart. I was nudged and I was beckoned by something unexplainable, but it felt compelling and it felt right. During my undergraduate years, those longings first showed up. They formed an intuitive stream of insights and interest. They felt like an inner fire of passion and concern. They made me insatiably curious. That fire burned hot with momentum. Those inner flames carried me. They gave me purpose. They sought expression in some kind of creative way. And I was a student of architecture at the University of Kentucky back then. And so the fire found expression in design. I'll share one specific. I chose for my architecture thesis project low-cost housing for the Eastern Kentucky Appalachian mountaineers. There was a research phase and a design phase. And this was during the 1960s. The time was the Vietnam War and the National War on Poverty. My heart was drawn to the distancing myself from one war and embracing the other war. My compassion embraced the needs of the poor mountain families of Appalachia. And to truly tell the story would take too long, but what we are noticing here is our inner life of longings. So let my story awaken your longings, whether you've acknowledged them and listened to them or not. This inner inquiry can point us directly to a gift of the universalist heritage. It asks us to think with our hearts. My longings, back in 1967, formed a river of feeling, and that river carried me through my senior year, coasting on the feeling currents of that thesis project. My whole sense of being seemed to merge with the needs of the Appalachian poor. It took on a life of its own. I lived it day and night. The empathy I felt for those poor families led me to devote my entire last year of architecture school to proposing a real-to-life response to their economic, education, and housing needs. I didn't know it at the time, but I realized decades later that that project became a prototype to how I am who I am. It pointed a way for whatever profession I might enter to become engaged both compassionately and creatively in addressing our social problems. Whenever possible, to always follow the river of longings. This river I bring to you, not my longings, but yours. We all want to be seen for who we are, don't we? We all want to be heard for what stirs within us, that wants to be acknowledged and encouraged. We want our authenticity to be witnessed by a few trusted others. The circles of fellowship we have developed in our congregations have been moving in this direction for 20 years now. The covenant groups, the chalice groups. They carry us to a place deeper, a place of presence. They open the potential for deeper sharing than just our opinions about what's going on in the world. That can lead us further toward the universalist gift that we have all received. And I'll call that gift relational presence guided by love. The passion that fuels me right now points to the untapped potential in our individual longings and deep feelings. That's why I lift it up for us to notice what I call the deep within. We need to go there. And we need to go there before we seek to discover shared longings with others. We must start with ourselves and how we relate. This is the mothering place of mutuality, of empathy, of caring and connection. This is what the Taoist tradition calls the yin energies. They also call it the valley wisdom. It's got a concave effect. It's a receptive holding place. Holding that meets us and receives us and holds and hears us. Unconditional acceptance. I think our universalist roots are yin roots of deeply feminine receptivity. They live from the energies of love, the qualities of love, and they cultivate loving acceptance. Bring to mind our first GMUUC principle. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That's from the universalist faith. And that's why it's the first principle, the place of our grounding and to which we need always return. Be gentle with yourself. Love yourself and love others. And attend well to your longings. Take time to contemplate your own inner stirrings. There you will find guidance. Keep heartfully in mind, we live in a generous universe and a generative universe. Heed this reminder from the Reverend Gordon McKeeman as we minister to each other. We are all ministers, you know. Ministry is a quality of relationship between and among human beings that beckons forth hidden possibilities, inviting people into deeper, more constant, more reverent relationship with the world and with each other. Being present with, to, and for others in their terrors and their torments, in their grief, misery, and pain, knowing that those feelings are our feelings too. Can you hear the stirrings of your own heart in these words. Attend those inner longings and needs as a river of feeling that yearns to move from your heart into the world. That river is your friend. It's your inner self calling. It wants to come forward to embrace and serve the world, but it moves slowly. If you find yourself rushing, you're importing something from the outside in. Attend and come out, not out in. It moves with wisdom. Just as rightly, this is also a Unitarian message. It resonates with the meanings of the Reverend William Ellery Channing, who called us to what he called self-culture, which could just as easily have been called soul culture. This is the wisdom truth. Serve your soul is to serve the world. Seek times of silence, long silences, and attend what moves there. So I'll close with the closing of Gordon McKeeman's meditation that I began just a moment ago. Whenever there's a meeting that summons us to our better selves, wherever our lostness is found, our fragments are united, our wounds begin healing, our spines stiffen, and our muscles grow strong for the task, there is ministry. May we minister to ourselves and to each other. May this be the ground we are nourished by and from which we move. May this be a blessing you give to each other and to this, your beloved community. Amen.